Welcome to yet another walkthrough. By now, I am quite sure you know the drill. This is where we introduce the new characters and words, give some background, tips on how to pronounce and remember the new words, and then in the podcast, you get to hear them used so that in class, you will be good to go. Now, this week, we will be doing what engineers do best. We will be learning all about numbers. We'll learn to count from 0 to quite high numbers. We'll learn that there is a very important difference in how Chinese people say large numbers that often gives interpreters a lot of headache. Also, we'll be learning about distances and length units so that we can actually apply our newly acquired number skills onto something. I think that's very important. But let's wait no longer and dive into this week's first word, which is ling. Second tone, meaning 0. This is a pretty complicated character for such a simple meaning. So for you will probably only recognize it as the by far most complicated number, as you will often see it together with other numbers. For example, if you're lucky enough to get a phone number, it will really stand out next to the other numbers, as they are very simple characters, all of them. But after 0, of course, comes 1, 2, and 3, but we already know those. 1, 2, 3. What we don't know is liang, which is another way of saying 2. Liang, third tone, meaning 2. So liang is used whenever you would use a measure word after the number 2, which is very often. So, for example, you would not say 2个人, 2 people. You would say 2个人, which is 2 people then. So, 2个人, 2 people. Because we have that measure word 个 in between. So, as a matter of fact, the only time you use 2 for the number 2 is when you're talking about the digit 2. So, for example, in a phone number, in someone's age or address, but whenever you are counting a noun, which is pretty often, and therefore you would be using a measure word, you use liang. So whenever you're counting a noun and use a measure word, use liang for the number 2. Now, let's go through the rest of the numbers that we don't know. 4, fourth tone, the number 4. And I remember this by looking at the right side of the character. You can almost see the number 4 in the character. So you see the 4 here. That's how I remember it. And the next being wu, meaning 5. And the same goes for this one. You can almost see our number 5. Well, use it in China as well, but the digit 5 in the character here, which makes it really easy to remember. So wu, third tone, 5. Liu, fourth tone, 6. Liu. Qi, 7. Qi, first tone, meaning 7. And even though this doesn't look like a 7, I remember it because it has that same horizontal stroke that a handwritten 7 often has. So this stroke reminds me of the stroke that is on a 7. Hence, it means 7. Qi, 7. Ba, first tone as well, means 8. Ba, 8. Jiu, third tone, meaning 9. Jiu. Shi, second tone, meaning 10. So now we've gone through all the numbers ranging from 0 to 10. So why don't you just pause here, pause the video just for a second and see which ones from 0 to 10 that you remember without looking back. It's completely fine, actually quite expected not to remember all on the first try, but now you know which ones you need to put some more effort into remembering. And by combining the numbers that we know now, so 0 to 10, it's okay not to know them all, but if we combine the numbers 0 to 10, we can actually count up to 99, but we still can't say 100, but that is about to change. By 100. By third tone, 100. So using by, we can now combine even more numbers up to 999. But over that, we need yet another character. We need 10,000. And so far, so good. We have a word for 100 in English, so do the Chinese. We have a word for 1,000, so do the Chinese. But now it gets a bit tricky. In English, our next number that has a name is 1 million. Between 1,000 and 1 million, we just count the number of thousands. In Chinese, however, there is a word for 10,000. Wan, fourth tone. Wan, meaning 10,000. This means that the numbers above 10,000 are instead told using wan. So for example, 100,000 would translate into 10万, 10 10,000s, instead of 100,000s. And this is a constant dilemma for translators who have to deal with a lot of numbers. So just one tiny mistranslation and the price of a deal can be 100,000 instead of 1 million. But don't worry about this. We will practice this a lot in class because it is a well-known dilemma for anyone learning Chinese. And this was the first half of this week's new words, and I will see you in the next part.